3 spine-chilling true stories of sinister summer vacations that unveiled terrifying secrets. Lydia thought she could finally escape. Having lost her job, she hoped the lakeside cabin might be a sanctuary, a place to heal the fractures in her family. Little did she know that summer respite could morph into a nightmare. Max and Ella, her 2 weary teenagers, flanked her as they pulled into the seemingly perfect suburban neighborhood. Bright flowers lined the sidewalks, kids played, and the sun cast a golden glow over their new escape. Yet, beneath the cheerful veneer, Lydia felt an unsettling tension. From the first night, whispers rippled through the trees, weaving shadows around them. "Did you hear that?" Ella's voice, barely above a whisper, danced with anxiety. Lydia brushed it off. "It's just the wind." But the wind didn't sound quite right. It spoke in a low, beckoning tone, and the leaves rustled as though they held secrets too dark to share. As they waded into the lake the next day, laughter briefly erased their worries. Their splashes cut through the dense silence, but the unease clung to them like a heavy fog. They fished and swam, the water warm against their skin, but still, Lydia felt eyes watching from the shadows. And then they stumbled upon the diary hidden beneath the floorboards. Lydia's heart raced as she read the faded script aloud beside the flickering flames. The stories twisted, from joyous beginnings to screams of horror. Families vanished into the woods. It felt like the cabin itself was a trap, drawing them in with memories of laughter only to ensnare them. The final entry swallowed the warmth from the room, detailing a family's unexplained disappearance just weeks prior. It hinted at children lured by a call they couldn't resist, something sinister lurking in the depths of the woods. "Mom, this is crazy. We should go," Max insisted, his demeanor shifting from skeptical to alert. Lydia's heart sunk. She finally hoped to bond with her kids, not be frightened away. "It's just an old diary," she reassured, masking her own anxiety beneath a fragile veneer of confidence. As darkness enveloped them, the unsettling melody drifted into her thoughts, the very tune their father once sang, but now it twisted and turned in the air, beckoning them, drawing them towards the woods. The laughter of her children faded, replaced by the pulsing, otherworldly sound of rustling leaves, heavy footsteps edging closer. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the morning light, dread loomed heavy. Neighbors exchanged nervous glances, laughter fading into whispers when Lydia inquired about the cabin's past. Shadows flickered in their eyes, as if they'd just spoken the name of a ghost. The smile of the shopkeeper vanished, replaced with cold dread. Whispering Woods has a way of holding on to its own. Every promise of warmth turned sour. Max and Ella, once carefree, now recoiled at mere shadows. The forest felt alive, pulsing with a heartbeat of its own, each whisper caressing their skin, warning them to turn back. But Lydia's determination to uncover the truth blinded her. Standing on the edge of the woods, she felt the oppressive weight of the unknown. The whispers grew feverish, engulfing them, binding them tighter. Then, the sun dipped lower, a shadow detaching from the thick trees. Panic flooded her veins. In that moment, she understood this couldn't just be a rainy summer. This was a game far more dangerous. And they were mere pawns, unaware of what awaited in the shadows. The following day brought a hollow sense of dread that wrapped around Lydia like a cold, wet blanket. She stepped outside, squinting against the morning sun, hoping that a new day would cleanse the terrible tension from her bones. Instead, her stomach twisted when she caught Ella staring grimly across the lake. Max's face was pale, a reflection of his unease. "Mom, can we not go near the woods today?" Max asked, his voice steady but edged with fear. There's something wrong with that place. Lydia nodded, wanting to assure her son that all would be fine, but something deep inside twisted in agreement. The woods loomed behind them, dark and foreboding, an oppressive maze that felt like it could swallow them whole. "Let us stick to the water. We can fish or kayak," Lydia suggested, trying to distract them. But as they approached the dock, the laughter of children echoed hauntingly around them, reverberating off the lake. It was unsettling, too joyful, too echoing of some twisted childhood game, a celebration in the face of their fear. Ella suddenly gasped. "Mom, look!" She pointed to the opposite bank where a group of children stood, their faces pointedly blank, as though frozen in place. They wore clothes that looked old-fashioned, faded colors that didn't fit with the vibrant summer hues surrounding them. Lydia's heart raced. Why were they just standing there? But just as quickly as she spotted them, they vanished like shadows retreating from light. The initial chill ran deep into her bones, sparking the fear that had been simmering uncomfortably. "That was strange," Lydia murmured, forcing a smile to her children to mask her own dread. The day dragged on, painted over with layers of apprehension. Max and Ella tried not to let it show, but she could sense it, the tension, the urge to flee. Each splash in the water sounded sharper, echoing eerily in the oppressive silence that enfolded the cabin. As dusk fell, Lydia felt pulled toward the woods, an ancient force drawing her forward. She fought against it. "Let us watch a movie tonight," she offered, attempting to anchor her family in some semblance of normalcy. They gathered on the couch together, images flickering in the dim light, but the whispers outside threaded through their conversation, unsettling and insistent. Then, a chilling thump echoed from the direction of the woods, loud and thundering. Lydia's heart leaped into her throat. Max bolted upright. "Did you hear that?" Before she could respond, a shrill scream floated in from the trees. It pierced the quiet night, reverberating through Lydia's bones. The sound echoed with the loss of innocence, each note tearing into her resolve, clawing at her sanity. Max and Ella clutched one another, their fear palpable. "We have to leave. Mom, we can't stay here. This is wrong." But Lydia's curiosity, that internal spark, began to ignite a reckless bravery. "What if it's a family in trouble?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "We need to check it out." Against every instinct telling her to run, she felt drawn to the mouth of the woods like a moth to flame. She intertwined her fingers with her children's, an anchor for them both as they stepped cautiously onto the worn trail, the eerie whispers beckoning from beyond the tree-line, an invitation she feared yet craved. As they plunged deeper, shadows danced around them, and the atmosphere thickened. The trees loomed like ancient guardians, threatening to reveal secrets too ghastly to bear. Then, all at once, the rustling silence amplified, almost as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to unfold. Then they saw them, a flicker in the deepening darkness, those same children from the lake, their faces angling toward something beyond, lost in trance. Lydia felt the blood drain from her face as their hauntingly empty eyes turned toward her, beckoning. "Play with us," they whispered in unison like a lullaby turned horrific. What lingered in the depths of the woods turned from curiosity to a primal panic. "We need to go back," Ella cried, her voice slicing through the encroaching horror, but the path behind them vanished, swallowed by shadows. Just footsteps ahead glimmered the unseen truth, a darkness too potent to escape. As the children moved closer, their grins wide and unsettling, Lydia wondered if they might ever escape, or if they too were now players in a much larger game of terror that had just begun. Lydia's breath quickened as the children's whispers swirled around her, their eyes reflecting an otherworldly hunger. Fear gripped her gut, urging her to turn back, yet an insatiable curiosity held her in place, her feet glued to the damp soil of an ancient path. Max tugged harder on her sleeve, panic choking his voice. "Mom, please. They're not real." His eyes darted back toward the figures, terror pooling in their depths. "We need to go." But the strange children continued to draw closer. Their faded garments fluttered like ribbons, and their grins widened impossibly, revealing rows of unnaturally white teeth. They moved with a grace that defied the laws of nature, gliding rather than walking, closing the gap between Lydia's family and whatever sinister secret lay within the trees. The air thickened as if the forest itself wanted to silence them, stifling each panicked breath. Lydia felt the whispers weaving through her mind, threatening to unravel her sanity. They were not just children, they were shadows of joy twisted into malice, beckoning with promises of forgotten laughter and games that never end. "Run!" Lydia shouted, but the word felt futile, a plea swallowed by the growling shadows. Suddenly, a chilling wind surged through the forest, sending a shiver down Lydia's spine. It whipped her hair around her face, pulling at her clothes like greedy hands. The joyous laughter of the children morphed into shrieks, echoing through the trees as if the woods themselves were joining in the horror. In that instant, something primal awakened within Lydia, a desperate instinct to protect her children. She hardened her resolve and whipped around, pulling Max and Ella with her. They stumbled, panic propelling them back the way they had come. But the woods seemed alive, branches clawing at their limbs, roots snaking across the trail like contorting serpents attempting to ensnare their fleeing bodies. "Mom, where do we go?" Ella cried, tears streaking her fear-streaked face. "Just keep moving," Lydia shouted, forcing her legs to propel them forward, that deathly fear igniting a fury within her. "We'll find our way out." The children's laughter crescendoed into a haunting melody, echoing off the gnarled trees as they raced through the dense undergrowth. Lydia glanced back at the fading figures, their smiles shimmering in the dim light, not yet swallowed by the dark. They seemed to shift and morph into twisted forms, melding into the very shadows that cloaked the forest. "Look!" Max gasped, pointing at a beam of light cutting through the murky darkness ahead. It glimmered like a beacon, hope piercing through the despair. "Keep going," Lydia urged, stumbling as fear coiled around her heart. The light beckoned, but it felt too far, too uncertain. Each step seemed more laborious than the last, shadows stretching, twisting as if the darkness wanted to refrain them. But then, just as they thought freedom was within reach, the laughter erupted again, a terrible chorus mixing with agonizing screams as the forest surged against them, pulling them back. "Mom!" Ella screamed, her voice slicing through the night. In a last desperate push, Lydia threw herself toward the light, dragging her children along as though every ounce of will could break the bonds of the dark. But the shadows surged faster, creeping closer, hunger pulsating with every heartbeat. A burst of white enveloped them as they broke through the foliage, rushing into an open field bathed in silvery moonlight. But as they turned back, gasping for air, the woods behind them pulsated with life. The children stood at the edge, their eyes glowing with anticipation, the grin stretching wider. "You can't leave us." Unnerved, Lydia stumbled back, suddenly regretting their path. Was this open space truly safe, or merely a deceptive oasis in the grip of danger? As the laughter faded into the night, a heavy silence loomed, filled with unspoken threats. And in the pitch-black recesses of the woods, a single figure remained, cloaked in shadows, watching, waiting, ready to reveal what horror truly awaited those who dared to uncover the hidden truths of their summer escape. What other secrets lingered in the dark? And what of those who had disappeared before? The chilling thought gripped Lydia like ice as dread wrapped around her heart once more. There was no denying it, something wicked had awakened, and soon they would have to confront the truth that lay in the shadows. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, as Lydia stood frozen in the moonlight with her children. Max and Ella clung to her, the icy fingers of fear still entwined around their hearts. The vastness of the field felt inhospitable, each blade of grass whispered warnings, and the cold night wind wrapped around them like a predator's breath. "Are they gone?" Max whispered, glancing back towards the ominous darkness that loomed like a ravenous beast. Lydia's heart thundered in her chest. I don't know." She forced herself to focus. The shadows seemed to retreat, but the memories of the grinning children clawed at her mind. "Mom, why did we come here?" Ella's voice trembled like a fragile leaf. "Because we had to escape," Lydia said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We had to try. But escape was an elusive dream. The moment of safety felt precarious, like glass about to shatter. The laughter from the woods still echoed, weaving through the air, drawing lines between their past and present. Just then, a sharp noise erupted from the dense trees behind them, pricking her adrenaline back to life. "Stay close," Lydia commanded, her instincts kicking in. She could see faint shadows shifting, moving at the edge of her vision, but there was something else. A slow, deliberate rustling like a long breath exhaled after waiting too long. Max turned to her, face pale. "What if they come back?" "They won tea," she lied, forcing fresh resolve down her throat. But inside, dread coiled tighter. That sinister laughter echoed again, rising like a tide. It didn't dissolve into silence, it wrapped around them, mixing with the rustling leaves, creating a grotesque symphony. Suddenly, the figure lurking at the edge of the woods stepped forward, the moonlight catching the outline. Lydia's breath hitched. It was not just a shadow, it was a child. One among many, but this one seemed older, its face smudged with dirt, its eyes gleaming with an unsettling blend of joy and sorrow. "You left us, you can't leave," it crooned in a voice that was too sweet, too eerie. Lydia felt her heart race, and she instinctively stepped backward. "Max, Ella, get behind me." She positioned herself, ready to shield them from whatever terror might come. The child inched closer, its grin morphing. "Stay and play forever." Its voice sliced through the night, penetrating the comfort of the moonlight, birthing confusion instead of safety. "Mom, don't!" Max cried, pulling at her. "We can't stay." But the haunting melody from the woods echoed louder, a chorus enticing and suffocating as the other children drew closer, their forms rippling as if the shadows were alive. They began to weave a circle around them, laughter blending into sinister whispers. "Lydia!" Ella cried, clutching her mother's leg as panic coursed through her. "What do we do?" All at once, Lydia felt an overwhelming wave of desperation. It surged through her, pleading for answers, for a way out, as if the very trees were alive and leeching off their fear. And then she understood, they were luring them. They were happy memories turned monstrous, twisting innocence into malevolence. "No! We want to play!" Lydia shouted. She spun on her heels, desperately searching for any sign of escape beyond the glowing green eyes she feared would swallow them whole. Sprinting was the only option. She took Max's hand and pulled Ella along, running with everything she had left. The field felt endless, each step echoing in the dark. Behind them, the children's laughter erupted into chaotic shrieks, ramping up their hunt. "The light one to save you. You can't run forever." They reached the edge of the field, gasping under the weight of uncertainty. Ahead, more trees stood like sentinels, the shadowy figures still in pursuit. Lydia's mind raced, frantically strategizing, heart pounding like a sniper's drum. "Where do we go?" Max's voice cracked, panic etched on his face, when she noticed a narrow path through the thicket, hidden just off to the side, beckoning to them like a flicker of hope amidst despair. "This way!" she shouted, dragging them toward the path. But as they hurried through the opening, Lydia paused. A voice whispered, sweet yet ominous, floating through the treetops. "You can't escape, we'll always be with you." And with that, the darkness closed in again, every shadow threatening to swallow them whole. Clutching her children tightly, Lydia dove deeper into the unknown, her heart racing with uncertainty, the laughter of the damned echoing behind. What existed deeper in the woods? And what price would they pay for the secrets they tried to outrun? The trees held more than shadows, they held ancient truths waiting to be unearthed. The path twisted and turned, the dense underbrush closing in around them like a tightening noose. Lydia could hardly see, the moonlight barely breaching the canopy overhead. Each step felt heavier, as if the forest itself was trying to drag her down, into its suffocating embrace. She gripped her children closer, their small bodies trembling against her, hearts thumping like war drums. "Can we stop?" Max gasped, the fear in his voice palpable. I can't keep running." Just a little further. Lydia urged, her own breath labored. We have to find a way out. But her heart sank, there was no way of knowing if there even was an escape. The laughter from the field had dimmed, but the whispers of the woods surrounded them now, quiet and unnerving, like a persistent itch at the back of her mind. Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through the trees, carrying with it a fleeting memory, the laughter of children, playful yet filled with a foreboding edge. Lydia pressed on, ignoring the memory and focusing on the path ahead. But the deeper they ventured, the more twisted the surroundings became. Gnarled roots reached out as if they had a will of their own, pulling at her feet, and the trees swayed close together, their branches threatening to entrap them. Then they stumbled upon a small clearing, a pitiful circle in the chaotic dark. Shadows flickered at the edges, muffled figures peering in, just out of reach, eyes glinting in the weak light. Lydia hesitated, instinct screaming at her to keep moving. We can't stop here. She whispered fiercely, looking to her children, who glanced up at her with both fear and confusion. Then a voice, sweet but tainted, broke through the dark like a knife. Mommy. Mommy, come play. The air filled with the soft, enchanting lilt, pulling at Lydia's heart, drawing her towards the clearing. She felt it, the tug of familiarity, the desire to give in. It was the voice of a child she didn't know yet, felt deeply connected to a lure that made her weak. No. Lydia said, shaking her head to clear the enchantment. You're not real. You're just voices. With that declaration, she spun around, but the forest around them had changed. The path behind them had vanished, engulfed by the thick undergrowth. Panic clawed at her throat. Mom? Ella's voice quaked as she gripped Lydia's shirt. What's happening? Where are we? Lydia's mind raced. Through the tree branches, she could see the flickering light of the moon, but it was trapped far above, beyond the nightmare of twisted roots and murmuring shadows. She had to protect them. But how? With adrenaline blasting through her veins, she turned back toward the whispers. Leave us alone. She shouted into the murky darkness, her voice echoing loudly, defiant against the creeping fear. For a moment, the whispers ceased, fallen leaves rustling softly in an unnatural stillness. Then came the laughter, rising like a tide, a cacophony of young voices, each sentence dripping with mockery, taunting her resolve. You left us. Why would you leave us? It sent a chill down her spine, igniting a memory she couldn't fully grasp. She felt lightheaded, the weight of a past she never fully lived pressing against her. Walk away. Lydia screamed, grabbing Max's hand and dragging the children toward the far edge of the clearing. The laughter pressed in around them, vibrating through the ground, shaking her bones. They had to escape this place, this aberration that fed on their fears. Then, up ahead, she spotted a pale light, a fleeting glow that danced like a candle at the end of a dark tunnel. Over there. She dashed towards it, joy igniting a flicker of hope against the encroaching darkness. But the shadows moved with her, darting in and out, as if trying to snatch away that last spark of light. As they closed in on the illumination, Lydia's heart raced, a desperate rhythm, pleading for salvation. What lay beyond that light? With every step towards it, a dread gnawed at her. Was it truly an escape, or just another trap laid by the spirits of this haunted wood? The ground suddenly gave way beneath them, a sharp drop into darkness. Lydia lunged forward, but it was too late. They were falling, screaming, spiraling down into the unknown, just as the laughter erupted into maddening shrieks, and then silence enveloped them. What awaited them at the bottom? And who had truly been chasing them all along? As shadows danced around them, Lydia felt the prickling realization: sometimes, the worst monsters aren't those that chase you, but the ones that hide beneath the surface, waiting to expose the truth. The fall felt eternal, a spiral into a void where time lost its meaning. Lydia's heart raced, dragging her breath with it, as darkness rushed all around. Her instincts screamed to brace for impact, but there was nothing to brace against. The end was hidden in the abyss. When they finally landed, it was not on solid ground. They tumbled into a cascade of cold, damp earth, the musty scent of decay assaulting their senses. Dazed, Lydia pushed herself up, shaking the dirt from her hair, and quickly turned to look for her children. Max. Ella. Panic seeped into her voice as she searched the murky gloom. She could barely make out the outlines of their small forms, struggling to rise from the ground. Mom? Ella whimpered, her voice a fragile thread in the thick darkness. Lydia rushed over, relief flooding through her when she found both of them small, trembling but alive. Are you okay? I'm right here, she said, pulling them close, feeling the warmth of their bodies against hers, but the moment of peace was fleeting, as that same chilling wind began to stir, whispering tales of dread. Shadows shifted and danced in the suffocating dark, mocking Lydia with the lost echoes of laughter. The oppressive air grew thicker around them, and a low, resonating hum thrummed in her ears, pulling her deeper into fear. Where are we? Max's voice quaked, clutching Lydia's hand like a lifeline. Just stay close to me, she whispered, scanning their surroundings. The ground was uneven, littered with what felt like brittle twigs and leaves that crunched underfoot, a stark contrast to the wild chaos above. She strived to also stay alert, her heart thumping erratically. Let us find a way out, but deep down, she feared there was no way out of this malevolent trap. The air felt alive, wrapping around them like tendrils, squeezing her lungs. Strange shapes began surfacing in the gloom, twisted branches that loomed like claws, reaching for them. The memories of the children's laughter returned, echoing off unseen walls in a cruel loop. Can you hear that? Lydia's voice trembled. The sounds of panicked breathing were replaced by distorted giggles, slithering through the air. She squeezed Ella and Max harder to her chest. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them cracked, a crevice snaking its way through the dirt. A hot gust of air shot up, swirling around like a storm. She stumbled back, eyes wide. Run! She barely had time to think, her instincts kicking in as everything started to shift violently. The children didn't need telling twice. They darted ahead, following the dim light that pulsed in the distance, an inviting glow that seemed to promise safety. Lydia bounded after them, fear propelling her forward even as the laughter danced in her mind, threatening to unravel her sanity. But as they reached the flickering light, a horror revealed itself, a wall of twisted branches and thorny vines, coiling tightly, blocking their path. The light was just an illusion, a cruel joke in this land of nightmares. Snaps and cracks echoed around them, a chorus of the unnatural. What do we do? Max cried, pressing into Lydia's side as the shadows loomed closer, whispering again, You left us, why would you leave us? The desperate cries filled her mind, and suddenly she saw flashes of fractured memories, faces of children lost, arms reaching out in need, merging with the growing fear in her own heart. I won't leave you. Lydia shouted defiantly, hands balling into fists. We will find a way. But as the shadows surged, hungry for their fear, Lydia realized that the forest wasn't just a prison, it was feeding off them. It craved their despair, their guilt, a vortex of darkness spinning around them like a relentless storm, and then she spotted a small, narrow gap between the thorns, a sliver of hope that whetted her resolve. There. We can make it. She rushed toward it, dragging her children with her, but the shadows shifted faster. Would they escape this hell, or were they too late? As they lunged for the gap, Lydia felt the chilling grip of something cold and dark encircle her ankle, pulling her back into the writhing mass of shadows. Just as the children screamed her name, what would become of them now, caught in the web of their worst fears? The laughter rose once more, sinister and unyielding, as the boundary between dreams and nightmares shattered around them. The darkness enveloped Lydia, a suffocating cocoon that gripped her tighter even as she fought against it. The last desperate cry of her children echoed in her ears, a haunting melody that sent shivers down her spine. Ella! Max! She called, her voice barely piercing the thick shadows spiraling around her. The sensation of being pulled deeper into the void was overwhelming, but she fought with everything she had. The cold fingers that clutched her ankle were relentless, each tug seemed to drain her strength, filling her with an icy dread. From the shadows, distorted faces emerged, flickering in and out of existence. They looked like children, their wide eyes filled with a mixture of pain and anger. Lydia's heart thudded painfully in her chest. "What do you want?" she screamed, almost as if demanding. Yet the only response was the laughter, unmistakably familiar, still echoing like a siren song. Through the swirling chaos, she felt a warmth brush against her trembling fingers. Her children. No. Not them. With a newfound determination, she wrenched herself forward, focusing on the memory of Max and Ella, their innocent smiles lighting up her darkest days. "Stay strong. Hold on to each other," she urged, though the shadows whispered doubts that clawed at her mind. "You left us. You abandoned us." The words twisted like daggers, embedding themselves deep into Lydia's psyche. Suddenly, the darkness peeled back for just a moment, revealing a path that shimmered in grotesque clarity. A pathway lined with skeletal trees, their gnarled branches resembling outstretched hands begging for salvation. Lydia took a hesitant step forward, heart racing. The fog seemed to part, revealing glimpses of her children's frightened faces in the depths of the shadows. "Mom! Help!" Max's voice shrilled through the night, drawing her to the utmost brink of madness. She turned and saw them, glimpses of their terrified faces flickering in the haze behind the thorny wall. They were still there. "Lydia!" The trees creaked in a voice that chilled her to the bone. "You cannot save them. They must stay. They belong to us now." "No!" she screamed, feeling the ground tremble beneath her. "I will not give up my children." With each word, the vines writhed in anger, squeezing the life out of her resolve. The pulsing shadows swelled, groaning like starving beasts demanding their meal. But Lydia, desperation igniting her spirit like a flame, raced forward. "Ella! Max! Just hold on!" she shouted hoarsely, as she wrenched herself away from the grasping fingers below. The gap shrank in front of her, the path growing narrower. She could feel the suffocating air tighten around her throat as the shadows began to lash out. They lashed like whips, catching her skin and filling the air with the stench of burning flesh. Fear churned in her stomach, but there was no time for hesitation. "Mom, please!" The cries were a dagger to her heart. With a surge of adrenaline, Lydia lunged toward her children, a last desperate attempt to break through. Just as she reached the edge, she felt the shadows tugging at her, fierce as they seemed to roar in rage. But she couldn't stop. Not now. She barreled forward, cheerlessly laughing at the pain embedded in her skin. The moment felt unreal, surreal and heart-stopping. Would she be swallowed whole, or could she protect them against the encroaching darkness? With one final push, Lydia dove through the gap, arms outstretched, a prayer masked as a scream echoing in her ears. Light engulfed her in an explosion of warmth and sound, scattering the chilling whispers like dust. But as the world around her crystallized into brilliant colors, she turned to face what lay behind her. What had she brought with her from the dark? The price of survival loomed like a shadow across the vibrant landscape. Would it come after them? Or had she truly escaped the nightmare? As Lydia gasped for air, the laughter faded, replaced by a new, dreadful silence. But it wasn't over yet. The silence felt wrong, unnatural. Then, she caught sight of Ella and Max standing not far away. Their faces blank, eyes empty as they stared into the distance. "Mom," they whispered, voices hollow, "why did you come back?" What had she awakened by breaking free? The air crackled with tension, a strange electricity that filled the space between them. Lydia's heart raced, the rhythm quickening in response to her children's vacant stares. She staggered forward, adrenaline pumping through her veins, desperate for a sign of recognition, a sign that they were still her kids. "What's wrong? What happened?" she gasped, clutching her chest as if that might steady the wild beating inside. They remained unyielding, lost in a trance, as if they had left her the moment she freed them from the darkness. "Ella, Max," she choked out, reaching for them. The moment her fingers brushed Ella's shoulder, a jolt surged through her, a reminder of that other world. The memories flooded back, shadowy whispers, twisted faces, every ounce of terror clawing its way back into her consciousness. In the stillness, the laughter returned, soft, distant, echoing off the trees around them. Lydia's breath hitched. "Stay away!" she shouted, pulling her children close, enveloping them in her embrace. I'm here," but their eyes flickered with something else, a hunger that sent icy fingers creeping up her spine. "Mom," they crooned in unison, their sweet voices a haunting melody, distorted yet familiar. "Why did you bring us back?" "I had to save you," she screamed, stepping back as if trying to escape the sound. Their words twisted like currents in the air, vibrant tendrils of darkness reweaving the reality around her. Suddenly, the world shifted. The trees loomed closer, their gnarled branches elongating, twisting into claws reaching for her. Lydia felt a pulse beneath her feet, a throbbing heartbeat beneath the earth. She looked down and saw it, dark roots, thick as her forearm, burrowing up around her ankles, dragging at her. No! Not again! She tried to break free, but the roots only tightened. Panic surged, and for a split second, she considered the darkness again, the sacrifice she'd made. What had she traded for their safety? "It's not over, Mom," Ella's voice rang out eerily, echoing like a broken record, "it's just beginning." Lydia's skin crawled, and she spun around, searching her surroundings for an escape. The fog thickened, pouring out from the trees, wrapping around her. It was suffocating. With each desperate gasp, terror consumed her. Memories flickered violently, rushing water, anguished screams, darkness consuming everything. "Mom! Help us!" Max cried, but it felt hollow, a diversion distant. Lydia had never heard such a tone before, and dread filled her chest like a stone. As she twisted back, ready to pull them from the clutches of whatever was rising in the woods, she froze. Another figure stood there, just beyond her kids. It was shadowy, indistinct. A face peered into hers, and Lydia felt the ground tremble again. "Welcome back, Lydia," it whispered, voice dripping with malice. Each syllable sank into her, weighing her down like lead. "Who are you?" she gasped, the murmur now feeling like claws against her ear. "You brought your children back, but did you bring all of them?" The laughter grew louder, spilling into the air like an oil slick, painting everything in grotesque delight. "No. I saved them," she screamed as chaos erupted once more. Branches snapped, roots writhed, and the shadows converged, wrapping tightly around her. Lydia's resolve began to crack. All the promises she made to herself shattered, scattering like broken glass. In the brief moment of clarity amid chaos, panic swelled inside her. What had she unleashed? As darkness closed in, images of her children flickered, faces of her lost ones entwined with those gleaned from memories best left forgotten. But in that final sweep, a new voice emerged, a child's voice, sharp and piercing, echoed through the tumult, drawing her attention. "Lydia, let us go." She turned once more, and despair gripped her. Was it Max? Ella? Or had she lost them both in her desperate fight? As the shadows tightened their grip, Lydia screamed, "I want to let you take them. Then you will lose everything." The world around her exploded into a darkness she could taste, and she braced herself for the end, seeking a thread of hope that felt impossibly out of reach. But what if she wasn't just fighting for her children anymore? What if she was battling for her own life? Lydia's scream sliced through the darkness, a desperate plea against the chaos, but the shadows surged forward, swallowing it whole. The suffocating gloom wrapped around her like a thick fog, dragging her deeper into an abyss of uncertainty and dread. She struggled, yanking against the roots, but they held fast, slick and unyielding against her skin. "Mom, don't leave us." Max's voice was a whisper now, almost drowned out by the cacophony around them. It echoed in her mind, twisting like a knife. She looked back at her children, their faces fading into the shadows, but the hunger in their eyes burned brighter, deepening her fear. "Please," she begged, her voice trembling, "stay with me. I'm right here." She fought against the roots, feeling them scrape against her skin, their relentless grip tightening as if they were feeding off her despair. But the figures beyond her children began to morph, shapes shifting in the fog. Faces molded together, twisting and stretching, forming a grotesque patchwork of humanity. Lydia's breath caught in her throat, ice pooling in her veins. These weren't just shadows, they were something far worse, reflections of forgotten nightmares, desires twisted into monsters. "Why did you come back?" They whispered, voices overlapping, a chorus of lingering fears clawing at her sanity. Each word dug deeper, reopening old wounds, dredging up memories she had tried so hard to bury. "I came to save them," Lydia cried, frantic to make them understand. "I want to let you take them again." "Take?" Ella echoed, her voice sweet yet tainted with malice. "Mom, we didn't just return, we awakened." A dreadful realization washed over Lydia. The darkness wasn't merely a force associated with her children, it had been a part of her too, living beneath her skin, in her veins. She felt their pull, an ancient call that throbbed in time with the roots that tethered her to this morass of terror and despair. "No!" she shouted, shaking her head violently, trying to expel the thought. "I want to give in. I want to let it consume any of us." Yet, as the fog crept closer, sweetly enticing in its false sense of security, Lydia felt herself beginning to falter. Was she truly fighting to save them, or was the darkness simply feeding on her desperation to possess them? With a fierce shake, she tried to break free, but it only bound her more firmly, the roots tightening as if sensing her fear. She grasped at memories of laughter and joy with her children, trying to anchor herself. But with each fleeting moment of warmth that passed through her, the darkness fed on it, growing stronger, wrapping itself tighter around her neck. "Join us, Lydia," the shadows cooed. Release your pain. In that moment, she realized they meant more than just surrendering to their embrace. They craved her very essence, her memories, and her soul. It was a horrifying truth, one that made the air around her thicken. She could almost see the silhouette of the other figure, waiting, reveling in her despair. "Mom!" Max cried again, his voice breaking through the wall of torment. "We're still here." Their faces flickered before her like dying embers, a brief respite amid the chaos. She had to find a way to bring them back, to reclaim that bond before it disappeared forever. She had to act, but how? As the last shred of her strength began to ebb away, a flicker of stubborn resolve ignited within her, refusing to let go. With a final primal scream resonating through the night, she forced herself to face the figures and the darkness surrounding them. "I want to be afraid. This can't be the end." The fog recoiled as if struck, the shadows wavering. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. But then, the laughter swelled once more, harsh and piercing. "Then let us show you what you've truly brought back." In that instant, the world began to fracture, and Lydia felt herself teetering on the precipice. If she didn't act fast, she might lose everything, not just her children, but also the remnants of her very soul. And in the depths of the looming darkness, a bone-chilling truth began to surface: what if the real terror was not what she had brought back, but what she had yet to confront within herself? The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating. Lydia could hear her heartbeat pounding like a war drum in her ears, a frantic rhythm that marked the clash of fear and determination. "No! I want to let this be the end," she screamed, rallying the raw energy coursing through her. Max and Ella's faces flickered like fragile candles in a tempest, teetering on the brink of loss. "Mom, please!" they cried out, voices full of terror and desperation. Each sound was a lifeline cutting through the suffocating gloom. Lydia realized that this battle was not just external, it was internal, too. She needed to face the shadows within herself, the fears, the regrets, the overwhelming guilt that had festered since their father's departure. "I am not who you think I am." she shouted into the depths. You won't take my children. The figures coiled tightly around her, shadows morphing into her darkest memories. Words of failure and abandonment echoed in her mind, but she pushed back against their weight. You are not my truth. She roared, the fire of motherhood igniting a resolve she never knew she had. With one furious push, she yanked her arm free of the clinging roots, sending out a wave of anger-infused energy that rippled through the darkness. The shadows faltered, recoiling as though struck. Max! Ella! Hold on to me! She cried, stretching out her hand toward them. It felt alive with a pulsating warmth. The roots shuddered, losing their grip, as if they breathed the lingering essence of her love. The kids' hands flew into hers like magnets, anchoring her to them. Mom! They gasped, recognition awakening in their eyes as they latched onto her unwavering spirit. Suddenly, the figures lunged forward, their sinister laughter erupting, claws stretching toward her. Lydia's instincts kicked in, she had to act fast. Together, we break free. She shouted, channeling every ounce of love and resilience she possessed, wrapping it around her children like a protective shield. The thorns entangled her legs, still fighting to ensnare her, but she pushed through, stealing her heart. We're stronger than you! She yelled. The roots and thorns shrieked in frustration, retreating in the face of her defiance. With a final heave, they surged forward, breaking through the last shreds of darkness. Light flooded the space, a brilliance overwhelming the shadows as they recoiled and disintegrated, their false power crumbling away like dust in the wind. Lydia tumbled into the light, her breath escaping in a rush, pulling Max and Ella close. They collapsed in a heap, gasping for air, disoriented yet alive. Did we make it? Ella murmured, eyes wide with disbelief. Yeah, we did, Lydia panted, relief battling against lingering fear. They were reunited, visible, tangible. Tears streamed as she pulled them both into an embrace, squeezing as if they could merge into one. But then, that same eerie laughter rippled at the edges of her consciousness again, taunting, teasing. Lydia shoved the thought aside, we're free. We are together, and that's all that matters. Yet even as she reassured them, shadows lingered just beyond the edges, whispering of the darkness she'd only barely escaped. Remember, Lydia, a voice hissed, the darkness never truly leaves. It merely waits with each heartbeat. She understood. They had escaped the worst, but the battle against the darkness was ongoing. It would always be a part of her. The terror and pain lay hidden in the corners of her memory, waiting to stir again. Healing would take time, but she wouldn't face it alone. They would walk through the sunlight side by side. Let us go home, she whispered, her voice stronger now. We'll face whatever comes next, together. Max and Ella nodded, their hands tightening around hers. Together, they began moving forward, the path ahead clear, illuminated by the golden hues of dawn breaking through the trees. Lydia took one last glance at the eerie woods. She knew the way back could lead to memories better left in the shadows. But she also knew that the light of love and resilience was far brighter than anything lurking in the dark. Their journey had changed them, bonded them in ways mere words couldn't express. The darkness may have beckoned, but it would not claim them. The love of a mother against all odds was a force too powerful to be consumed. As they stepped into the daylight, Lydia inhaled deeply, savoring the scent of fresh air and the bright warmth of the sun kissing her skin. Today, they had survived, and tomorrow would come with its own battles, but they were ready. They embraced the future together, the past a shadow trailing behind but never again dictating their lives. This was their moment of triumph. Now it was just the three of them, united in their scars and their strength, poised to forge ahead. And the woods stood silent, the shadows whispering in quiet defeat, while a new melody began to play, a song of hope, of healing, of a future reclaimed. Now, don't go. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep our community growing. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is what makes this possible.